school. I went on one when I was in college. I think I might have shared this before, but I spent a summer in Mendenhall, Mississippi when I was in college. And it basically reordered my life. And it's the reason why I'm standing up here today. I had a calling to go that summer on that mission trip. And everybody was going to places. I thought I was going to go international. I was so excited. So I was going to go to Scotland or France or Vietnam. And then they gave me my assignment. It was Mendenhall, Mississippi. And I thought there had been a big mistake. A big, big mistake. But there wasn't a mistake. And because I went to Mendenhall is the reason I'm up here today. So let's start with a word of prayer. Thanks, Lord, for calling us to things. For calling us to mission trips. For calling us to take up the mantle about things in our world. Thank you that you're faithful to speak to us. And that we can hear your voice. Yes. And we can know your voice. And we can say yes to your voice. And I pray that you'd be with me today as I talk about that exact thing. Open our ears. Our ears are just bogged down. You know, most of the time our ears are just full of headphones. Yeah. Let's put on your headphones today so we can hear what you have to say. Amen. We pray. Amen. You guys, I'm so nervous today. I'm so nervous. I'm a basket case. I'm just nervous to talk today. I don't know why, but I've just been stewing about it, and I've been nervous about it all week. I was talking to you. You guys are an intimidating group sometimes. But I love you. I love you all. You know, we're all so different, and God calls us to different things.
That's right.
We're just different. We're made differently. And God calls us to different things. And so I want to talk about God's calling today. And I've been reading through this great little book. Okay, it's called Calling in Clarity. And it's written by Doug Pascala, who is a professor at Seattle Pacific University. And it's really, it's been shedding some great light for me. Actually, before I get started, let me share something outright today. I'm going to be using words and ideas and thoughts from several different books and sermons and videos that I've either read or watched over the last several weeks, okay? So I don't want you to think that I'm plagiarizing. I am not plagiarizing. I'm going to be out with it right now and tell you I'm just going to copy what some other people said. Okay? I'm going to try to tell you when I'm copying them, but I may forget. So here's my bibliography. Okay. Calling in Clarity, Racial Reconciliation, The Social Life of DNA, the Bible, which is good. But the very first thing on my list is The People of God at Rosary Bible Fellowship. You're my biggest bibliography. Because really, anything I'm going to talk about today has come from you. You've been teaching me patiently for 25 years how to be in this walk with you, how to love Jesus with you, how to engage in race with you, how to do life together. You've been my biggest supporters. You've been my biggest helpers. I really owe everything to you. And I wouldn't have a single word to give this morning if you hadn't given me one first. And I thank you for that. I love you. I really deeply love you. So when we talk about calling, do you ever feel like this? What am I doing with my lives? What am I doing? I think that's the question that routinely runs through our minds, isn't it? Like, what am I supposed to do? What's God's calling on my life? And I think it's been extremely heightened recently because of the events that have happened in the past few weeks. You know, we've just had shooting after shooting after killing. And it makes us step back and go, what is my role in this? What is my calling in this? What am I supposed to do, Lord? What are you calling me to do about this issue? What do you have for me in this? And I can't say I'm going to answer that digression for everybody today. That's not really the purpose here. But I want to share enough that maybe you'll begin to be able to grapple and grasp some of what God's saying to you. To start with, though, before we even get to the idea of calling, we really have to know who is the caller. Who is the caller? We have to have a really good understanding of who is calling us. And it is Jesus calling. Now, I don't mean that trendy little devotional book that you're all reading. I don't mean that one. I mean the actual Jesus calling you, speaking into your life and saying something to you. It is Jesus calling. But who is he? Who is he in the context of his time period? What is the lens through which Jesus sees the world? And how can that be our lens as well? Now, the hands down best description I've ever heard of Jesus came from a guy named Curtis DeYoung. And he's a professor of racial reconciliation studies at Bethel University in Minnesota. Okay, he came here and he preached about 10 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. So I found one of his sermons recently, and I wanted to share with you, almost word for word, what he says about who Jesus is. Here we go. There were dramatic events surrounding the arrival of Jesus. His birth under scandalous circumstances, visits by poor shepherds from Palestine, and rich magi from Asia, and nighttime travel to the continent of Africa to find refuge from Herod's threats of murder. Jesus was born into an extended family of strong women, Elizabeth and Mary, and strong men, Zechariah and Joseph. And it was as though it took an extended family of strong women and strong men to raise Jesus for the mission that lay ahead for him. Yesterday, Jesus was born the descendant of the Hebrew people. The Hebrew heritage finds its roots in Asia and Africa and the indigenous people of Palestine. The family tree of Jesus was no different. It was multicultural and multiracial, and some scholars have even called Jesus an Afro-Asiatic Jew. Not only was Jesus born into a family with a diverse heritage, he spent most of his childhood days in Galilee, the most culturally diverse province in first century Palestine. He lived in a province that included people from Assyria, Babylonia, Egypt, Macedonia, Persia, Rome, Syria, and of course, the Jewish community. And Jesus spoke multiple languages. He would speak Aramaic in his home, Hebrew in the temple, and most likely Greek when he worked at his father's shop. It was as though it took a multiracial, multicultural, and multilingual setting for Jesus to be certified as a Savior who could authentically reach all people. In his daily life, he reached out in friendship and solidarity to people outside of his own cultural background: Romans, Greeks, Samaritans, indigenous Canaanites. Women traveled in his entourage and were the fundraisers for his ministry. It was as though Jesus could not help himself. He had to be around everyone. Jesus was an oppressed, ethnic, and religious minority under the colonial rule of Rome. He was a person in solidarity with folks who were marginalized. He was an activist for social justice. And Jesus was a radical reconciler. That's who Jesus was. That's who Jesus is.
All right.
Jesus Christ is the same
yesterday, today, and forever.
All right. And forever. The Jesus who was yesterday and walked this earth is the same Jesus we have today. And don't forget it. Don't let anybody trip you up on it.
All right.
Because he is the same. He is the same. We serve a radical reconciler. radical, to the roots, getting to the roots of what needs to be reconciled. And that's why I believe this church and the Church Universal is uniquely poised to be at the forefront of this discussion on racial reconciliation.
All right.
That's why. Because we're following the Jesus who already did it. He already did the work of reconciliation, period. And we can drop racial reconciliation on top of that.
That's right.
He did the work. So when we follow Jesus, we're following the radical reconciler. And that's the way the work gets done. We start with Jesus and we move out from there.
Come on. Amen. Words.
But who is Jesus calling? So we know who the caller is, but who's he calling? You? Is he calling you? Is he calling me? Well, let's see. There's 3 ways to look at the calling of God that Koskela talks about in his book. 3 things. There's the general calling of God, the missional calling of God, and the direct calling of God. Okay, so 3 different calls. Now, the great thing about those calls that he outlines is that I think it lines up really perfectly with the way we respond to this idea of being engaged in discussions of race and reconciliation. And the responses I normally hear are, number 1, I don't want to do it. Number 2, I'm not called to do it. Number 3, I can't do it. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I don't want to do it. Tell me, Jesus, I don't want to do it. I'm not called to do it. I can't do it. Right? So let's start with the number 1, general calling. What is a general calling of God? What is it? Okay, this is a calling that God gives to every single believer. So if you're a believer, you have this calling. You have a calling, a general calling, and I have a general calling. We share the same calling. This is the general calling. And this is what it is. To do the will of God as he teaches us in the scriptures. You don't have to know anything else as you walk the earth as a Christian, except that this is the general calling that God gives us. Read the scriptures and do the scriptures. Read the scriptures and do the scriptures. That's what we do. And this is where we do it, in the daily routine of our lives. Right? We don't just do it in this place or just in this place. We just do it in the daily places of our life. When I wake up, when I get my kids ready, when I go to work, when I make dinner, when I see my neighbor, when I shop at the grocery store, when I come to church, when I work out in the gym. That's where I do it. I learn God's scripture. I learn his word. I learn his principles. And then when I go about my daily life, I apply them to the situation I'm in. That's the general calling of God. But when it comes to being involved in racial reconciliation, we often hear, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I hear it from both sides. I hear it from black. I hear it from white. I hear it from people with every sort of skin color. This isn't something that breaks along color lines. It seems in my conversations with people, there's something about engaging in this discussion that's so scary, we just don't want to go there. We just don't want to go there. We don't know what to say about it. And sometimes we have such deep feelings about it, we're afraid what we'll actually say to people about it, right? Like, oh, I feel so strongly about it. I'm going to just say it, and then I'm going to scare everybody. It's confusing, and it's terrifying. We're even afraid to talk with someone that we love about it. Because we're afraid we may not love them at the end of the conversation. Anybody going on a family vacation this summer? You know, a few weeks ago, right on the heels of that week where we had all those horrific killings, unarmed men being killed, and police officers being killed, and people in the nightclub being killed, it was just overwhelming for us, wasn't it? And we just didn't know what to do with it. And I met with a friend of mine, and she's a new mom, and we were talking about that. And then she shared with me, and she said, I so